You're very welcome back to the latest episode of Treat Talk with myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. This week we're going to do an award special for the club year just gone. But before we start, Matt, a lovely wake-up call this morning. Ian Corbett nominated for an All-Star in the football. Richly deserved, the first since 2010, and you will speak a bit about the man that is so deserving of this recognition.
Yeah, there's a broad smile on my face since learning about it absolutely this morning, and I am absolutely I'm really thrilled. I'm really thrilled for everybody connected with Limerick football. Like it's a statement for Limerick football, but in particular, I am absolutely delighted for Ian Corbett because we've been talking about Ian Corbett, I suppose, since this medium started almost 3 years ago, believe it or not. And he has come up so often for all the right reasons. I think if there was anybody deserving of a nomination for an All-Star, and not just a nomination for an All-Star, but an All-Star, to be named an All-Star, it is Ian Corbett, because his contribution to Limerick has been immense. And when we talk about Ian Corbett, it's not sufficient to talk about Ian Corbett, the footballer. We've got to talk about Ian Corbett, the leader, as well, because he's a natural leader, and we see his performances time out of mind, whether it is Limerick or whether it's Newcastle West. Like, you're always going to get a top-class performance from Ian Corbett. And now this is coming in a year which has been topsy-turvy for everybody during the year because of the pandemic, and particularly for people like Ian Corbett, because as we know, Ian Corbett went into Templemore to train as being a Garda, was fast-tracked out into passing out to tackle the pandemic, and had to go back again to resume his studies. So, Ian Corbett would have been excused in 2020 for focusing on his career, but he satisfactorily worked out his career and his footballing career. And his performances are such now that they go unnoticed for the most part. For the simple reason that we that are used to seeing him playing at club and at county level are saying, well, sure, look, that's Ian Corbett anyway. He's going to bring that level of performance anyway. But it's high time, and it's not a minute before time that he gets the recognition he deserves. And to have this, the congratulations to Ian Corbett and to the Newcastle West Club, and indeed everybody involved with Limerick. And I have no doubt there'll be no one more delighted than his fellow clubman, Limerick manager Billy Lee, because Billy, the way he has managed the Limerick team and the way he has overseen them, the year that they've had in 2020, and I know we're going to be talking about him later in the context of games. It has been nothing but phenomenal. But heartiest of congratulations to Ian Corbett, and let's hope that common sense will prevail, and that Ian Corbett will get one of those coveted All-Star awards.
Yeah, please God, and I think it's well deserved. After, I'd say, nearly every Monday and Tuesday this year after weekend of games, the annual or the weekly team of the weeks, Ian Corbett was a stalwart there at 6 every single week. So it's richly deserved for Ian, and I suppose he'll get 24 hours to himself as the only Limerick man nominated. The Hurling All-Stars nominations will be released tomorrow. If you just had to put a number on it for the All-Ireland champions, how many will Limerick get tomorrow, do you think?
Get nominated?
Nominated in the Hurling, if you just had to put a number on it. You had 9 in your team, so there's 9 definitely.
I was going to flippantly say to you how many were on the panel.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
I think they'll be close enough to 15.
Yeah, you'd imagine that maybe Peter Casey and Seamus Flanagan that were so interchangeable and probably could work against each other, or you could have even 16, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. But look, we'll give Ian Corbett his 24 hours recognition because he's so richly deserves it, as we've said many times. And please God, that common sense will prevail and that we'll get a Limerick All-Star in the football to go with however many we get in the hurling. Another piece of news we'll just go through before we get into the club awards is Pat Ryan is the new Limerick Camogie manager. The Knockany native takes over for the upcoming year. Still unsure what kind of a season we'll have again, but it's a positive appointment for the Camogie team.
Yeah, and there's a new Camogie executive effectively this year, and like they have wasted no time in putting their ducks in order, as it were. Like the unfortunate departure of Paul Sexton for family reasons late last year had left a void, and obviously. That has now been filled with the appointment of Pat Ryan, and I suppose probably from a logistical point of view, it's a good thing that he's going to be managing the senior and intermediate, senior and junior teams, and let's hope that the junior team will be just a pathway to the senior team. And he's brought in quite a strong backroom team. John Lillis, a former Tipperary Camogie manager, is among his coaches. Shane O'Neill, who's a good bit of experience involved with Limerick Camogie teams, is also in there among them. But Pat brings vast experience to the table. Like he many years playing with Knockany, and he won a county intermediate medal with Knockany in 1999. And he guided Knockany to a couple of county minor championships. It was after there he cut his teeth in management, and he guided Knockany to a county senior hurling league. And then he was involved. While posted, he's a bank official, and while posted in Antrim, he was involved. He became the Antrim Camogie manager and was involved with the Queen's University's hurling team, and also with the O'Donovan Rossa hurling team. And then in Kerry, he was involved. He guided Kerry to an All Ireland Minor B championship, and was involved with the Causeway Club down there. And back home, nearer to home, then in 2017, he helped Fedimar win a first East Junior Hurling Championship in 18 years, and he also had a spell with Kilteely Drumkean. Pat Ryan comes with a vast experience, and he has brought on board with him another coach who is coming up through the ranks. And making a name for himself is his fellow clubman Tom Maloney. So, like the signs are good, and let's hope first of all that we get games, Jack.
Yeah.
And when are we going to get games? We have a fair idea of what the GAA's thinking is regarding intercounty vis-a-vis club. We haven't got the same sort of information from Camogie as to what their structures might look like. But whatever they are, to Pat Ryan, I know Pat quite well. Pat and his management team, we wish him the very, very best of luck.
Yeah, and I'll second that. And we look forward to a season. I hope 2019 there was great progress for the Camogie team. Obviously, 2020 was a blip in the road, please God, and hopefully Pat Ryan will steer the ship back in the right course. But we'll get down to what we set out to do today, and that's the 2020 Club Awards. As I said, we've 8 categories. We've Match of the Year, Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, Performance of the Year from a team, Performance of the Year from an individual, the Score of the Year, the biggest surprise, and then the overall Team of the Year. We've broke it down into intercounty, club hurling, and club football. And I suppose we'll start with, as I've laid out here, with the Match of the Year, intercounty. I suppose, what kind of games came to your head when you were thinking about that? Which was the best intercounty game of the year we saw?
there were a good few now. There were a good few, like there'd be a good few contenders for that. I suppose you could simply say Limerick's 5 hurling championship games, but you'd be saying that from a Limerick perspective. I thought the Limerick-Galway game was a very, very, very good game. I thought Limerick's performance in the All-Ireland final was excellent. And you'll say I'm harping probably on concluding stages, but I thought Limerick's performance against Clare in the opening round, was a fine performance in which they clinched the league. You switch over and you look at them. You look at the football performances and the football, and there are a number of excellent performances. And I suppose probably the Limerick Tipperary football game, which went to extra time and which Limerick came so close to dislodging Tipperary out of the championship for a second year in a running, probably stood out as the football game. But in terms of importance, and it was a good game to go with it, Limerick's visit to Sligo. The stakes were extremely high on that occasion, and Limerick produced the goods, and it was a very, very, very good game. And they to me would be the pick of them. Munster final, I wouldn't rate as a great game. The victory over Tipperary, I wouldn't rate the game as a great game, because, like, if it was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, it was a very, very bad day. It was played in monsoon type conditions. But if you talk about great games, and you have a direct comparison, if you go back to 2018 when Limerick played Cork in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and the type of game that they produced on that particular, it was very, very, very far short of that. But I thought the victory over Clare, I thought was a very, very good game. And the All-Ireland semi-final and the final from a Limerick point of view, even though it ended up one-sided, going to an All-Ireland final and you score 30 points, Jack. There's nothing, very little more to be said, isn't there?
No, there isn't.
But I suppose I know you're leaning towards Limerick and Tipperary in the football.
Yeah.
And I think I would have to agree with you on it. I think I thought it was an excellent game, and you'd have to accept, I suppose, Conor Sweeney's effort had an element of Hail Mary about it, or if not Hail Mary, Holy Mary anyway, in the end, which salvaged the day. But yeah, it probably, if you stand back and look at the games objectively, from a full-blooded contest point of view, and this is not disregarding the hurlers now at all, because I thought the semi-final was quite a good game, but I thought that football game, it absolutely stood out, and it was so unfortunate that we came at the wrong side of it. I know on a year in which Limerick won everything in hurling, that we should be picking a football game that we lost as probably our game of the year. We'd probably be marauded and murdered for it, but look, we can only say what we saw.
Yeah, look, I'm going to agree when you said that I was going for this game, because I said to you earlier in the week that's the game I was edging towards. And again, it's not a slight in the hurlers. I just don't think there was ever a point this year, even including the Galway game, that I thought John Kiley's side were going to lose. And I suppose that's probably why I'm leaning towards the Tip Limerick football game, because Tipperary were the favourites. Limerick started so well. Tip came back into it. Limerick responded as well. As you said, Conor Sweeney's efforts, just fantastic footballer really, and you could see it coming. And obviously there was all that drama, only 3 scores in extra time, but the 20 minutes flew by. From a neutral's point of view, that football game was better. It was the All Ireland hurling final. I'll get that in a while. That's definitely going to be picked along the way. But just for game of the year excitement levels, unfortunately, the result goes against us. But just for the game itself, Limerick Tipperary in football finished 115 to 211, so close to Limerick. But look, they're building, and please God, next year it could be a Limerick football game.
It was born out after when Tipperary went on to win the Munster Championship.
Yeah, I know. I remember saying it straight after Tipperary beat Cork that look, Limerick should be there, but that'll serve as an incentive for the footballers. And another game I'd even go that would be ahead of all the Hurling games was that Sligo game, the 116 to 114 win to win Division 4. That was another excellent game from Limerick. So we'll give the footballers their due. Match of the year, Limerick with Tipperary in the Munster Senior Football semi-final. Moving on to Club Hurling Game of the Year. I suppose I'll give my take on this. It was the first game I saw live when we actually got returned to action out in Clarina, Mungret St. Paul's versus Kildimo Palace Kennery in the first round of the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship. It finished 117 to 116 in Mungret St. Paul's favour. Kildimo Palace would get their revenge in the final. They're now promoted. But after however long of a break it was, 2-3 months, it was an exhibition of hurling. In Clarina, there was people out on diggers and everything to see this game, and it lived up to the hype. I'm not sure if you were there or not, but I remember saying to you straight after the game that would be our final, and it was our final. The roles reversed in the final, but what a game it was.
Yeah, it was a fantastic game. It's certainly right up there with those games. And the final wasn't bad either.
No, it wasn't.
No.
It wasn't.
You know, and like there were a lot of very, very good club games this year, and Mungret were involved in quite a few of them now. The County Premier Intermediate Hurling Final, the County Premier Minor Hurling Final was an excellent game between Ballybrown and Mungret St. Paul's, and like you know. I was reflecting on it in advance of this morning, and Group 1 of the Senior Hurling Championship produced some very, very good games for different reasons. The championship kicked off with Patrick Swell and Adair building up that big lead, and Patrick Swell clawing them back. But that group was so tightly fought. We had Doon then who drew with Adair and drew with Patrick Swell. They were all very, very high quality games.
Yeah.
We were asking ourselves the question, you know, at that stage, could the championship maintain that high standard? And then, of course, in the other group, you had the defeat of Napirshick by Kilmallock. Kilmallock's first win over Napirshick in 6 years in the first round. Like it as it were, put the cat among the pigeons. And now in the Napirshick, it was the wake-up call that they were probably looking for, and came at the right time. And they disposed subsequently of a hand. And then we had that Kilmallock a hand game, if you will recall, where Kilmallock appeared to be out of sight. And lo and behold, a hand came thundering back into it. And you know, there has been an awful lot of excitement along the way. Possibly in Section B, not as much excitement as we would have liked, you know. But overall, I thought we had a very, very decent senior hurling championship. And then you moved on to the concluding stages. And you had the defeat of Kilmallock by Doon in the county semi-final, and like, would it go down as a surprise? I don't know, because like I thought probably the manner in which a hand came back at Kilmallock in the group stages, for me anyway, it certainly raised red flags as far as Kilmallock were concerned. So, and like Doon, even though they hadn't won in the group stages, they had come through the group stages with 2 draws. They were pretty competent performances, and like that was a decent semi-final. But the way the Pearshik defeated the outgoing champions Patrickswell in the semi-final, and the way they won the final was just absolutely mind-boggling. We said it before, and we'll say it again, Jack. It was an awful pity that the Pearshik didn't get the opportunity to go on to the Munster club, and I have no doubt go on to the All Ireland series, because I think that they tick so many boxes. They tick so many boxes during the year, and particularly in the closing stages of a championship, when you really want your players to perform. They certainly did it. Now, Mungret St. Paul. I thought the Premier Minor hurling final was a game for the ages.
Is that your pick, so?
Yeah.
And Ballybrown obviously went back to back, and for me anyway, they will be speaking more about Ballybrown throughout this. But it was a real another developmental year for Ballybrown, and they really seem to be coming for that senior championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's like back-to-back Premier titles is not easily done, you know.
No,
I know June did it, but look, of course, another very, very good final, Jack. A very, very other good game was Doon making it back-to-back under-21 championships.
Yeah.
With their victory over Patrickswell, and we shouldn't, you know, when you're talking about great games during the year and real quality games, that's up there with them.
Yeah, that was actually an excellent game. I think it was 2 points in the end. I think Adam English kind of sealed the day for Doon with a 2-point win. But look, I'll go for Mungret St. Paul's versus Kildimo Palace Kinnery in the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship first round. You're going for Mungret St. Paul's versus Ballybrown in the Premier Minor final that Ballybrown came on top in. But as you said, it was a brilliant championship, and after all the uncertainty in March, thank God we got all these brilliant games in the hurling. Moving on to the football, I suppose I started with my hurling, so you can tell us what games I suppose were in the reckoning for football game of the year in the club championship, and what did you ultimately go for?
Yeah, I suppose the standout game had to be possibly Adair and Newcastle West.
Yeah. Because
here you had the champions of 2018 against the champions of 2019, and like it was a huge showdown of a game, and absolutely like, you know, it was a game that was in the melting pot until the final whistle. But there were other interesting games during the year, and I suppose as events transpired during the year, when we saw the swashbuckling way in which Adair eventually won the county championship, like it puts into context the magnitude of Father Casey's win over Adair in the group stages.
Yeah. But
if anything, if you compare it with the hurling, I suppose the wake up for Adair was akin to the wake up that Napier got from Kilmallock. And as far as Harry Jason and his backroom team in Adair were concerned, it probably was at just the right time, because Adair drove on from it. The performances of your own club, Ballysteen, Jack, and their performance in against Father Casey's in the quarter final was a very, very, very good game, and like they went one step further than the previous year, like, because they pushed Newcastle West the year before, and they had a decent year. That was a very, very good game. But I suppose when you're picking the game of the year, it has to be there in Newcastle West.
Yeah, I suppose I will probably pluck for that in the end. But just talking there on the Ballysteen point, I have Ballysteen and Father Casey down here as one of the games, that 14 to 8 points win. It's a huge game for Ballysteen, and an incredible performance from the lads, in fairness. But as you said, it has to go to Adair Newcastle, and I suppose a complete role reversal from 2019 when Adair came in as champions, and Newcastle West overturned them in Neville Park, and same again this year. And the intensity that those two sides bring to the championship is on a different level for the time being, and it really shows the standard in Limerick football when them two teams play against each other.
Absolutely, and it certainly has set a new benchmark. The performances of those two teams, but we just cannot. Talking about the club football championship, we cannot just depart our discussion without mentioning Drum Broadford and the contribution that Drum Broadford have made over 2 decades at senior level has been absolutely phenomenal. Is it 7 county titles, 11 county final appearances? Like they were the benchmark, over 20 years. And I was there the day they were relegated. It was a sad day, but they went out. The Drum Broadford went out with the dignity and the type of dignity that they have shown. Like they have been great standard bearers for 2 decades, and they went out to Galtee Gales, and credit Galtee Gales as well on the day. They weren't doubting about their victory, because the significance of what was after transpiring wasn't lost in them. And what we have to say is, thanks to Drum Broadford for all the memories at senior level over 2 decades. And I expect it won't be long before we'll see him back among the top echelons of Limerick football again.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be. I think just the achievements of that team was incredible. I remember one of my housemates is from Cork, and he said to me, the Drum Broadford gets to 18 consecutive semi-finals, and it really that just sums up the dominance of that team for so long. And as you said, it won't be long before we see him again. But for now, it's a dare.
Yeah, but you go back to 2008, Jack.
Yeah.
You go back to 2008, and they won the Munster Club Championship.
Yeah, the only team.
And that was the first Limerick club to do it. Now, all right, Thomond College did it and won the All-Ireland, but there was only one Limerick player in the entire squad. From Culloher were the first Limerick club to do it, and they did it in style, and they didn't do it easily. Now,
no, Nemo along the way. I remember that.
You could say, look, the look of the draw. They drew Nemo Rangers in the semi-final and beat them.
Yeah,
beat
low-scoring affairs, but
in the final, and gave a very good account of themselves up in Longford against Crossmidlane.
Yeah, they're an incredible team.
Like, there's a huge debt of gratitude to be owed to Drum Broadford. It will not be the same starting off the football championship this year, whenever it starts, and hope everything will be okay. Without Drum Broadford, when you look down at the fixtures and there's no Drum Broadford there, it'll be surreal. I'm
sure that the 12 teams won't mind it too much, seeing that they avoided Drum Colour for the year, but as you said, it probably won't last very long. They'll probably make it back up to the senior ranks. And I suppose while we're on that, we'll just touch on Claghon for a second. They obviously got promoted after a time in the Intermediate Championship. I was at that game against our Griffins. It wasn't a great game by any stretch of the imagination. So I think finished 10-7, but the drama and the intensity levels again were a huge feature on show, and Claghon will be back senior next year. So I'd give a nod to that game as potential for game of the year, but I suppose it doesn't come close to Adair, which we'll settle on as the game of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, and Claghon are going to be back in senior ranks next year and this year, and they're certainly a club that will not look out of place at senior level, and let's hope it'll go very, very well for Claghon, because Claghon have been, whatever you like to call them, a sleeping joint or a fallen joint, whatever it is, but it's great to see them on the road back. And I suppose their revival at senior football, back to senior football, it didn't happen exactly by accident, and it didn't happen. I don't know why we expressed mild surprise when they did it, because I suppose the reason we did is that Gerald Griffins looked so strong, and coming off the defeat last year and their performance in the group stages, because Claghon have been knocking at the door. They've been knocking at the door for 2 or 3 years, and it was only a question of when they could open it, and it was great to see him opening it, because Limerick football, Limerick GA needs a strong Claghon. They're one of the great traditional clubs out in hurling and football. It's not very, very long ago, I think about less than 35 years ago, since they did a senior hurling and football double.
Yeah.
County senior hurling and football double. So, we need the Claghons of this world.
Yeah,
and it's great. It's great to see the club back there, and full credit to the people. There's a lot of hard-working people in Claghon, and they've, for a certain number of years recently, they've been swimming a bit against the tide. But now let's hope that the tide has gone out, and that they're back in senior football and back I would claim where they belong. And they have a seasoned team, and I don't think they're going to be a pushover for anybody.
No, they won't, and I suppose we don't know when we'll get that championship yet. But one thing's for sure, that we'll have Claghon in senior, and we'll have Drumcolor in the intermediate ranks. But again, just to reaffirm that selection, it's Newcastle Adair. Adair's 113 to 11 points win over 2019 champions is our club football game of the year. I suppose moving on to the second category, it's player of the year. At Intercounty level, we spoke at great length last week about Gerard Hegarty. I imagine he's still the unanimous choice. We spoke there a while ago about Ian Corbett. He'd probably be the nomination for the football team. So we spoke a great deal about them, but it's Gerard Hegarty and Ian Corbett really would be those two, would be the players that stand out.
They would be the two outstanding players, and you could make a case, I suppose, for Tom Morris. You could make a case. You could make a case for Sean Finn. You could make a case for Dermot Burns. Cian Lynch. You can make a case for him when you're having this type of discussion. You can make a case for Cian Lynch as a permanent fixture in those sort of discussions. You can make a case for Aaron Gillan. But I suppose you'd have to go with Gerard Hegarty, because it looks as if he will probably be named Hurler of the Year, and he's had an absolutely dream season, a fantastic season. Yeah,
a dream season, right. And if we spoke at great length last week about Gerard Hegarty, if anyone wants to listen to that podcast, so just the 2020 Intercounty Hurling All-Stars, and a special mention to Ian Corbett this week. But Gerard Hegarty is our Intercounty Player of the Year. I suppose moving on to the Club Hurling Player of the Year, I have 3 names down in front of me here. That's where I whittled it down to. David Dempsey in the Pear Street, William O'Donoghue in the Pear Street, and then I had Kyle Hayes for Dino Palace Kinnery. Did you give much thought to anyone else?
I didn't. Peter Casey had a very, very good year.
Yeah.
A very, very effective year for the Pear Street. He would certainly come into that level of that type of discussion. But David Dempsey had an absolutely fantastic year. It was so unfortunate that he picked up that injury that was it against Galway, that he missed the All Ireland semi-final. No, it was the Munster final he was missing from.
Yeah,
I think.
No, he missed the Galway game. He came on the Munster final.
The Galway game. Yeah. David Dempsey. I don't know why we were surprised that David Dempsey was so good in the club championship, because what he had shown with Limerick in the Munster League and in the National League before the shutdown, he really was on top of his game, and he really picked it up. When the club championship started. Now, William O'Donoghue, who I thought was absolutely outstanding in the club championship throughout. Here again, and we spoke earlier on in the context of Ian Corbett, we spoke about leadership, and here is a true leader, and I narrowed it down. Sean Finn, mentioning him, had a very, very good year with Bruff. There's no doubt at all about that. Paul O'Brien had a very, very good year, I suppose, with Mungret St. Paul's, and you know, I know we'll be talking about young player of the year later, and for me, you know, I thought a player that was outstanding throughout the year was Colin Coughlin of Ballybrown. Was a player that impressed me absolutely hugely.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very tight call. But between David Dempsey and William O'Donoghue, when I came down to it, I went for William O'Donoghue.
Yeah, I'd lean towards Timsey. William O'Donoghue, it's just kind of like man against boys when you see him play. The way he can, at that level, he just throws people around. He's the enforcer for Napier and he sets the tone, and he's a real leader. Talking about leaders, William O'Donoghue is a leader. But I think just William O'Donoghue is recognised throughout the country now for his performance with Limerick. I think David Dempsey probably doesn't get that recognition yet. He hasn't really broke into that starting 15. But I don't think I've ever seen him play a bad game for Napier, and I think it's just a recognition that he deserves. So I'm gonna pluck for David Dempsey there for the club hurler of the year, and you'll stick with William O'Donoghue.
I'll stick with William O'Donoghue because, like, when I was picking the All Stars, it was a very, very tight call for William O'Donoghue. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no difference at all between the type of performance. That's one of the great things about William O'Donoghue is that the level of performance he brings to Limerick, he brings it to Napier as well. Yeah. You know, he's totally consistent whether it's club or county.
Yeah.
And he's is consistent whether it's club or county. And William O'Donoghue has innate leadership qualities. And we spoke about Ian Corbett the player and Ian Corbett the leader. And you can talk in the very same terms about William O'Donoghue. And I think for the last couple of years he's been absolutely outstanding for Napier. And particularly in 2020, I thought he had an absolute standout year.
Yeah, it won't be the last you hear fully for me anyway, but I went for David Dempsey. I thought, especially not with Kyle Hayes for his performances with Lion Palace Kennery. You go for William O'Donoghue. There are club hurling player of the years. Moving on to the football club player of the year, I narrowed it down to two Adairmen, Paul Maher and Hugh Burke, who we obviously saw with the Limerick senior football team at the end of the year. I went for Paul Maher, and again, I suppose on the same lines of David Dempsey. He's a back first and foremost. He's a cornerback. He's a sticky cornerback. But I think he's brought new facets to his game in 2020. Kind of a direct running. He was kind of played out closer to the middle of the field for Adair. And I think Hugh Burke got a lot of plaudits, and he won't be the last time we hear from him in this podcast. But I just went for Paul Maher. I thought he was exceptional throughout for Adair. And when really needed against Newcastle, he really came to the fore.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you about Paul Maher. I think Paul Maher has had an outstanding year, club and county. But of course, when you're having a discussion on club football player of the year, you know, you simply just cannot leave out Ian Corbett.
I know.
You just, you know, it's you know, it's not a valid discussion if he's not in it. Like, but his consistency was phenomenal again from Newcastle West. But like Paul Maher was to me, like, Hugh Burke was excellent as well, and Robbie Burke, and you know, you could pick out so many players in Adair, and like, it's very, very easy to pick out a forward in these type of situations because they get the scores, they get their name up in lights. But and sometimes we pick forwards, you know, get sort of carried away by scoring prowess or a great goal or wherever it is, and we seem to overlook the performance of defenders. But I agree wholeheartedly with you about Paul Maher. I thought Paul Maher had a fantastic year.
Yeah, an exceptional year, and look, we won't debate any more about that we have a consensus. Paul Maher, Club Football Player of the Year, obviously with the county champions. That's 3 and 4 years for there, and it's an incredible achievement. So our Player of the Years, Intercounty, was Garrod Hegarty. Hurling, I went for David Dempsey, you went for William O'Donoghue, and then football, there was consensus, Paul Maher from Adair. Onto the third category of 8, you have Young Player of the Year. For the Intercounty, I have 2 names down. I've Kyle Hayes as one. I know Kyle has been on the scene now for 5 or 6 years, but he's still only 22. But I'm going to go for Adam English, the minor captain. I was just thinking about it last night. 5 points in the Munster final, 2-3 in the semi-final. He got the winning point for Doon in the County 21 final as well. So I'm going to go for Adam English, a real prospect for Doon.
A real prospect, and I agree with you. And like that, there are compelling cases that can be made for Kyle Hayes. There could also be a case made for Cathal O'Neill. I thought his performance against Cork in the under-20 hurling championship was very promising. It just showed that Cathal O'Neill is translating the form that he had as a minor up to under 20 level, and he certainly deserves honourable mention. But I cannot disagree with you about not that I want to disagree with you, Jack. I cannot disagree with you about Adam English, because like the 2 goals in Thurles, they were really special, and it killed off the Cork challenge. And like, coming up to half time, you're struggling to get on top, you're a point or 2 ahead, and what happens? Your captain goes and gets you 2 cracking goals. That is leadership in itself. And like, his performances overall have been fantastic in the Munster final. Like, we hadn't beaten Tipperary in a Munster minor hurling final for 36 years. And Adam English captained Limerick to do it. But not only did he lead the Limerick team, but he led them on the field as well. Like, his performance was outstanding. I think he was the outstanding Intercounty underage player. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, and obviously we'll get to see him with Doon this year. What capacity you would imagine a player like that will be shoehorned straight into the senior team. But it's really exciting for Adam English himself, but as the county as well, to watch his progress. And please God, he can continue in that direction.
Adam English's pedigree is excellent, as he's a grandnephew of Eamon Grimes, who captained Limerick in 1973. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree there. So, like, any tips he'll want about how to do it, just ask the granduncle,
What is he been doing it so far anyhow? But moving on into the club hurling. Again, I've narrowed it down to 2 names, 2 Ballybrown men, Aidan O'Connor and Colin Coughlin. You mentioned Colin Coughlin earlier on in the podcast. He's just been exceptional. But I'm going to go for Aidan O'Connor, because Colin Coughlin missed the quarter-final against the Pearshig, and he was huge. He missed that presence in the wing-back line, even though he's only a young man. But I think Aidan O'Connor...
That says it all about Colin Coughlin.
Yeah,
he was an 18-year-old minor, and he's really missed. You cannot say much more about him than that, But go on, sorry for cutting across you.
Yeah, no, like, just win for Aidan O'Connor, because when Coughlin was missing, and it was an obvious absence, and as you said, for miss an 18-year-old is mad. But I think he got the first score of the game against the Pearshig that day in the Gaelic Grounds quarter-final. Really took it to the Pearshig, obviously in a losing effort. But I think in the minor final, he scored, I think it was a 114, and I know he's a free taker, but even he went on to the frees against Cork for the under-20s. He took up the frees against the Pearshig as well when things weren't going that great. I just thought he was just eerily consistent for an 18-year-old, and when Coughlin was missing, Aidan O'Connor stood up, and that's why I'm shading it his way. What was your thinking? Was there any more players, or was it down to the 2 Ballybrown lads?
I had it down to the 2 because I thought they were the standout young hurlers of the year. Like, no doubt at all about it. They played in the minor championship and they made the transition to the senior championship. I was absolutely gobsmacked in 2020 by the performances of Colin Coughlin, I have to say. Yeah. And to me, and equally, Aidan O'Connor had an absolutely fantastic year, and I'm sure that they're going to be fast-tracked towards the senior panel before too long more. Yeah. Because they are certainly county senior hurlers in the waiting. And no, I opted for Colin Coughlin. I thought he was immense in the senior championship, and I believe that what you said, like, if you attribute your loss maybe to the loss of being without an 18-year-old at senior level, I think it says it all about the value of Colin Coughlin. Like, his performances at wing back were absolutely outstanding. He's got it all. You know, you look at his attributes, you look at his suite of skills. Colin Coughlin is endowed with them all. Like, and his ability to get long range points, Jack, you know, is to me was absolutely outstanding. I went for Colin Coughlin, but just over Aidan O'Connor.
Yeah, look, we'll split the vote, and the vote each for Aidan O'Connor and Colin Coughlin. But I suppose one thing that they do have in the locker is they'll have beaten Na Piarsaigh, Partyswell, Doon at underage level to win county titles. That'll definitely serve Ballybrown in the Section A of the Senior Championship this year. So we'll split the vote. One vote for Aidan O'Connor, one vote for Colin Coughlin. Exceptional year from the two 18-year-olds, and hopefully more development this year in 2021. Going on to the football, before we get into the debate, I have it down to a Ballylanders man and a Ballysteen man. Would you be happy to debate that, or have you someone else outside of that?
I'd happily debate that, because I have to say that I was scratching my head elsewhere, like to find young players who were consistent, and I would say that I'm at a small bit of a disadvantage here, and a small bit of a loss, in that because of the congestion of the fixtures, I didn't see as many senior football championship games as I would have liked, and as I would normally have seen, because they have been spread out, and that's through no fault of anybody. County Board did a great job in getting so many games in such a short window of opportunity. So I'm leaning on you a small bit on this one, but I see that who you going with, or
When I did this earlier in the year, I wrote all out, and I opted for Ballylanders, Killian Mead. I'm sure you'll endorse that. But I also put in Bill Casey for my own club in Ballysteen. There was a few more. I thought Killian Ferris as well for Ballysteen was exceptional. Again, as you said there, the congested nature of the fixtures. I was at all the Ballysteen games, so I did miss some games. I did see Ballysteen, so I'm going off what I saw. Killian was exceptional all year, and he has been since he broke on the scene probably 4 or 5 years ago. But he was minor captain for his age group, so he's got the recognition before. I just thought Bill Casey played corner back, but you really can't pin down Bill. He's an exceptional athlete, first and foremost. He's a good footballer as well, and he's definitely making great strides. I know he came into the game late. He nailed down a position in the Ballysteen team this year. I thought he was exceptional throughout. He was named on a team of the year I saw somewhere. Killian Mead didn't get that honour, but I suppose as a wing back it's probably more difficult. But he did help his side to a county final. So when you put it at that, in the game against each other, Bill was excellent, but Killian got the result. So if you'd probably edge towards the Ballylanders man, but that's probably more going on the Ballylanders victory. But again, two really exciting prospects for Limerick football.
Yeah, two great prospects, and you know, spoiled for choice between the two of them. But I will make the argument for Killian Mead, because obviously of the few games that of the games that I did see, obviously I saw the Ballylanders games because they were my own club involved. But when I saw Ballylanders coming out the first day, and Niall Fitzgerald, who was the new manager in his maiden year as manager, had named 3 debutants, and named all 3 in defence. You know, I certainly was worried to a degree. You had Pat Holian, Sean Maloney, who came in at centre back and who was very, very, very good as well, and you had Killian Mead, and all 3 without exception. We needn't have worried. All 3 stood up to the plate. But you were absolutely right. Killian Mead was absolutely outstanding, an outstanding young player, and played exceptionally well. Player that I thought played well as well during the year was Jack Downey for Ula. who certainly deserve a mention. But I suppose for consistency and the fact that he helped Ballylanders get to the county final, I would be inclined to lean on Killian Meade.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of a fairy tale story in the programme in that county final that Killian Meade was a mascot in the 2014 final between Ballylanders and St. Pat's, and to get there himself then helped him 6 years later as a 19-year-old was a great achievement. I think it's probably only fair though, like that, seeing as we split the vote for the Young Hurler of the Year in the club, that we'll split it again. I'm sure you'll have no problem in saying Killian Meade and Bill Casey, two exceptional talents, will both get a nod, one each from us.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd agree with you. I had a bird's eye view of Killian Meade playing left half back where he played, and as you know from the commentary box for a couple of the games, and like he really has. He's got it. He's got it. He's a huge future.
Yeah, and so does Bill from our own club Ballyseen, and hopefully continues in that progression.
I saw Bill playing in one of the games. And to me, if to have gone in there, I think I asked you after the game who was Bill Casey.
Yeah, I'd say you did, right? He was very good player.
I asked somebody after the game who was Bill Casey because he stood out for me,
Yeah, well, he's a big man. Like, he's very tall. He's quite strong, and he can do it all. He'll get forward. He'll man mark. He's everything in his locker. So. The Young Players of the Year, Intercounty, Adam English, unanimous. Then for the club, you had Aidan O'Connor and Colin Coughlin, and for club football, you had Killian Meade and Bill Casey as our Young Players of the Year. Going on to Performance of the Year from a team, Intercounty, I went Limerick's All-Ireland final performance. Awesome. There's not really much you can say about 30 points performance in All-Ireland final, is there?
Says it all.
There's no point even. Well, look, we could sit here and talk all day, but I'm sure we've talked at length about Limerick's performance. But it was just incredible and the pinnacle of the year, I suppose. Limerick kind of trudged through some of the games, but they really showed their class in that All-Ireland final. We won't dwell on it too long. I suppose in the hurling football, again, I went unanimous choices. In the hurling, I said in the Piercing 5-27 to 112 in a county final. What can you say about that as well, really?
No argument. I'd say what I've said all the time. It's a pity they didn't get the opportunity to go to the next stage.
Yeah, there wasn't a performance like that throughout the year. And then in the football, again, county final, Adair 4-7-4, and I know that was against your own club, Ballylanders. But again, three exceptional teams that leave their best performance to last when it really matters.
They did, and like we picked three games that were one-sided, and there were three huge games that were one-sided. But they I suppose it's appropriate that we would be picking them because in all three cases they were one-sided because of the performance of the winners.
Yeah, and there's a lot of teams that gave great performance throughout the year, but there's no matching up with them performances. Limerick 30 points, 19 All-Ireland final, and at their ease for a share of it as well down the stretch. The Piercing 5-27 to 112 in the county final. Again at their ease down the stretch, and Adair 4-7-4 did hard work in the first half, and then again just comfortable in the end. Three exceptional teams, three exceptional performances, and there's no debate there whatsoever. I suppose moving into performance of the year from an individual, there will be debates here. For the Intercounty, I had Danny Neville 7 points against Cork in January, kind of set the tone for the year. For the footballers, Ian Corbett, take your pick, whatever game you want. But in the end, I went for William O'Donoghue against Tipperary in that monsoon in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Again, he got on the scoreboard. I think he scored 2 points that day, but it's just his work on the field and around the middle totally negated Noel McGrath, who I thought was hurler of the year in 2019, and set the tone for his side. So I'm looking for William O'Donoghue against Tipperary. What were your thoughts on the individual performance of the year from a county player?
Yeah, William O'Donoghue was obviously that day oblivious to the dire conditions, because it was an incredible performance by William O'Donoghue, one of the real standout performances. Another performance that I thought was the performance of Tom Morrissey in the All-Ireland semi-final. And I've said this before in this medium, things did not go well for Tom Morrissey in the Munster final. And here he crops up in an All-Ireland semi-final. He scores 6 points. Gets 5 of them from play. When Gillan was gone off towards the end and stepped up to a vital free and put it over the bar. I think it says it all for what Tom Morrissey is about. That, you know, he quickly put the disappointment of the Munster final when he was called ashore during the second half. He put that very, very quickly behind him. And the performance that he put on in that semi-final was absolutely memorable for me. And he backed it up with a similar performance in the final.
Yeah,
you know?
He was exceptional to that.
Performance. And like it's very, very hard to see him go beyond. I can't go beyond William O'Donoghue that day against Tipperary. And like, you know, he was outstanding in the first half, and you were saying to yourself, can he maintain this level? He did. He answered all the questions.
Yeah,
I thought he had a fantastic game that day.
That's a unanimous for William O'Donoghue, and I think it speaks volumes to that performance that you have Tom Morrissey. I know you mentioned it, 6 points in the semi-final. Gerard Hegarty 7 points in All-Ireland final. Tom Morrissey got 5 that day, but I think it just showed the man that William O'Donoghue is, that it's not about the scoreboard, it's about the leadership around the middle of the field. But again, there was loads of exceptional performances, but I'm glad we agree on that one, definitely. When the game was in the melting pot, really kind of came into his own and took over. For the club hurling, I have it down to 3, but I want to hear what kind of games or players you went for in the club hurling performance.
William O'Donoghue, nearly in all the games from the PSC. David Dempsey, certainly in the county final, I would agree with you. Kyle Hayes has had a number of very good performances. Again, Sean Finn had very, very good performances for Bruff. Like Pat Ryan in one game for Doon started off like a trail, had I think it was the county semi-final. Had a very, very good performance. But I suppose if you want to deliver on the big stage, in this case being the county final, I suppose David Dempsey's performance in this year's county senior hurling final was one for the ages. And I'm leaning for David Dempsey on that one.
Yeah, and when I was talking to you earlier in the week, and just off the top of my head, I just kind of said what was my main initial thoughts. And David Dempsey's county final 2-2 Salva was what I chose. But doing more research during the week, I'm just going to go with Pat Ryan 7 points against Kilmallock in the county semi-final, because, and we'll get to it in a while, I think doing a real underdogs. No Rich English, no Dara Donovan, and for Pat Ryan, the other kind of county boy, one of them, to step up and score 7 points from playing kind of centre forward, which he isn't really. I thought that was exceptional. So I'm going to lean towards Pat Ryan, but as you said, David Dempsey's 2-2, Kyle Hayes got 6 against Mungret that first day, but I'm going to edge towards Pat Ryan.
Yeah, I'll stick with David Dempsey, but I did say that I thought that Pat Ryan's performance I thought was exceptional. Like, you're right, he started at centre forward. A lot rested on his shoulders with both Darragh Donovan and Richie English out. But literally, he was all over the field that day.
Yeah.
Pat Ryan covered every blade of grass so many times that day. Like he had a fantastic game, Pat Ryan. You know, he just took on the mantle of leader.
Yeah,
and was hugely responsible for in the main for their win, and his 7 points was sort of the icing on the cake, and a very, very, very good performance. But I'm leaning towards Dempsey because David Dempsey, it was the big stage, it was county final day, and you need players to stand up, you need in a county final, and by God did he do it.
Yeah, and look, I have no issues with David Dempsey getting it. I'm going to edge towards Pat Ryan because I'm going to be talking about David Dempsey later on. Not to give away anything, but look, I'll give it to Pat Ryan, you give it to David Dempsey. Going on to the football performance in the year from an individual. As I said, I saw all the Ballyseen games, and I thought Darren's performance against Father Casey's in the quarterfinal was out of this world, playing again at centre forward, kind of ran the show, even with Danny Neville and the likes of Bill Case, Gillian Ferris on the field. I thought he was head and shoulders above everyone else. That's just from a personal point of view, watching Ballysteen. Owen Hurley, the first day against Drum Broadford, I think he kicked 2-3. Drum Broadford were very sticky that first day, but he kind of set the tone. Owen Hurley. Ian Carver got a couple that day, but I thought Owen Hurley was the man that stood out. But I'm going to go for Hugh Burke. Again, county final. He got 2-2, matches Dave Dempsey score in the hurling equivalent. He just ran the show for Adair up front. He's mesmeric sometimes when he gets on the ball. I know he plays kind of inside forward for Limerick, but he's more of a centre forward for Adair, and he is the orchestrator of the best, or the conductor of the best orchestra in Limerick, I think, and not shown anywhere else throughout the year, only in that county final if you want to see it.
Yeah, I would be leaning in that direction, as I know to my cost. But I also, you'll be pleased to know, give very honourable mention to the performance of Danny Neville of your own club against Drum Broadford.
Yeah.
Like in the first half of that particular game, it was what I would call a special performance. It was Danny at his absolute best, absolutely fantastic. But again, we're talking about delivering on the big stage, and there's the biggest stage in Limerick club football is county final day, county senior football final day. Hugh Burke delivered on county final day. I would agree with you. In the football performance, club football performance of the year has to be Hugh Burke in the county final.
Yeah, and it won't be the last we hear from Hugh Burke today, for me anyway. So performance year from an individual, you've William O'Donoghue unanimous in his performance against Tipperary in the Munster semi-final. I pluck for Pat Ryan in the county semi-final against Kilmallock. He's 7-point salvo. You went for David Dempsey for his 2-2 in the county final, 2 exceptional goals. And then Hugh Burke unanimous for his performance against Badlanders in the county final for Adair. Moving on to the score of the year. I suppose for an inter-county season, we were blessed. Limerick put on an exhibition of scoring throughout the year. Probably not so much with the goals. We only saw, was it 3 goals against Tipperary? One of them was a penalty. I'd say you could argue with Seamus Flanagan that he probably wasn't going for his goal, but I'm sure he'll tell you he is. But for me, I went for Declan Hannon's point against Galway All-Ireland semi-final just for half-time. Put Limerick 15-11 ahead, but it wasn't. Hannon finished it, but the player on the back, Burns to Finn to Nash into Tom Morrissey, and Tom Morrissey takes a really difficult ball on his own 65 real low and just pops off Declan Hannon and at his ease halfway line over the bar. It just summed up Limerick hurling there and then in 5-10 seconds.
Yeah, I suppose it summed up Limerick hurling, and it summed up it summed up Declan Hannon, and it summed up Declan Hannon's leadership, which we saw he doing something similar but doing it on the double in the 2018 All Ireland final, and it was I think the score came practically immediately after he had lost. He had been dispossessed, which rarely happens him. And when Limerick won it back and offloaded it to put it back over the bar, like it was an absolutely fantastic score. But if you're trying to pick some of the scores, some of the Limerick scores of the year, a couple of Dermot Burns' long range points were absolutely fantastic. Some of Tom Morrissey's scores, like there were so many of Tom Morrissey's out there on the left wing, and he just looks up and slots it over the bar. Some of the scores of Garrod Hegarty, some of the scores of Gavin Gallan, the scores, the economical way that Peter Casey can come on, just literally flick it over the bar. The 2 points that Graham Mulcahy got in the closing stages of the Munster hurling final. Like there's a whole array of scores there. You're into lottery territory. You're spoiled for choice. There are so many. Yeah. But I agree with you. The significance of the score, the importance of the score, of where the score came from. It came from your captain, leading by example in hurling's biggest stage, Croke Park, on All-Ireland semi-final day. I agree with your Hannon's point.
Yeah, and look, just as you were talking there's a few points that came back to my mind. There was one Peter Casey against Clare. Grod Hegarty just goes down the line. No one can keep with him. And a hand pass kind of underneath his hand out to Casey, flicks it over. That was another such point. And I think just for the football, it's worth mentioning Adrian Enright's goal that Ian Corbett kicks or gives a pass to Cillian Fahey on a sixpence. And Cillian Fahey's goal against Tipperary that Tony McCarthy puts on a plate for Fahey as well. It seems to Cillian Fahey's on the receiving end of all these brilliant football passes. But I'll still go for Declan Hannon's point. As you said, leader, captain, All-Ireland semi-final, just for half-time, after making a mistake, it's our score of the year.
I agree with it. Like when you told me you were going to be discussing score of the year, it was one of the scores that absolutely hit me. Like the pass of Ian Corbett against Waterford was something very, very, very special that led to the goal. And this, and we're wondering why we're not wondering. That is another example of why we got the news that we got this morning.
Yeah, it was an all-star worthy pass, and it was worth the nomination alone. But look, we'll go for Declan Hannon for his score to make it 15-11 in the All-Ireland semi-final. But again, special mention to Ian Corbett. He's getting a lot of those today.
But that doesn't the team in this country, Jack, that wouldn't have Ian Corbett, but they can't have him. He's ours.
He's ours, exactly. I suppose then going on to the club hurling, I didn't go for Dave Dempsey's county final performance, but he is going to get my score of the year, and it's really a case of take your pick from them county final goals. The first one is a rocket from just outside 21 into the top corner. If you had 7 or 8 all max inside in the Doon goal, he wouldn't have saved it. It was inch perfect. I remember watching it and I was like, I need to replay that because that is perfect. And the second goal then, Peter Casey breaks through, gives it to Dempsey. Owen Mack rushes out. Dempsey takes one touch on the hurley and flicks into net and never touches his hand. I don't know if any goal or any score comes close to either one of those. Haven't really made up my mind which one is better yet, but can you cast your expert opinion on which one you prefer?
I made up my mind very differently on that. It's the second goal. I just couldn't get over it for weeks. Like it was, this is what you pay your book going in the gate to see. That type of exceptional play. All right, there were no bums and seats that day, but because of the restrictions, are very limited amount anyway. But that's really what the punters going to see. That was actually a special moment, and it takes extraordinary skill to pull that one off, and extraordinary speed of thought, of course. Totally in sync. Your thought and your actions really, really in sync. That was a memorable goal. I remember the debate after whether how did he finish it, and it being shown back in action replay and everything like it. I have no doubt both goals were exceptional, but I've no doubt in going for the second goal.
Yeah, I don't know. I just have some kind of inkling towards the first goal, but look, David Timsey is getting our score of the year for whichever goal he prefers. He can have it.
He's actually getting 1 and 2.
Yeah, he has that, and his goal against Patchswell as well in the semi-final as well is another piece of brilliance. Yeah. So David Dempsey scores goals in county finals. He's got 4 now in county finals, which is an incredible feat for Dave Dempsey, and he gets another award this year. In the football then, again, we've spoken at length about the county football final between the Derry Battlelanders, and you probably want to hear much more about it, but I think Hugh Burke's goal sets the tone early on. I think it was 7 minutes in, and I watched it back just last night. Adair have the ball for a minute, which probably doesn't seem like very long, but when you're chasing the ball for a minute, you know that the team that has it is in complete control. There's 12 passes. Mikey Lyons eventually sets him through, and the finish is exceptional from Hugh Burke. And there's no other score that came close to it for me. I don't know what your thinking was there now.
No. It's the standout goal, Jack. It's the standout goal. It was just an incredible score. Like we had 7 minutes without a score, actually in the county final, and it looked from a Ballylander's point of view that they might be about to match them. But by God, it was an incredible goal. It was an incredible score to get off the mark with, and it was only a special player could pull it off. But it was the product of exceptional build-up play of Adair, and as you said, the patience of Adair. And you must remember that the score was also got at a time when Adair were playing into a strong breeze. So, like, its significance was huge. Ballylanders had a strong breeze, and they hadn't gone off the mark in 7 minutes. And here they were hit by a thunderbolt of a goal, a special goal. So well taken. I have no argument at all with you on that being goal of the year, for me anyway.
Yeah, and look, and for those that didn't get the chance to see it, Robbie Burke intercepts the ball in his own 45. Adair played around for a minute at their leisure, looking for that gap. Eventually, Mikey Lyons plays a hand pass over the top, in behind the Ballylanders fence. Hugh Burke doesn't even put it into his hands. Straight boot, that wasn't the boot. There was expertly finished into top corner by Hugh Burke, but it never touched his hand. An exceptional goal, and as you said, it kind of probably turned the game in 7 minutes. And look, we know how it ended up 4-7-4. So Hugh Burke, again, unanimous, and we are unanimous in all our scores of the year. Declan Hannon for his point against Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final. David Dempsey will go with the second goal on your command in the county final. That brilliant piece of skill to finish Peter Casey's pass. And Hugh Burke in the county final against Ballylanders. Again, Hugh Burke is mentioned. I suppose we'll move on to the biggest surprise. I just put down hurling and football. I didn't go Intercounty. I didn't think there was any major surprises. I thought Limerick would win the All-Ireland. They did. I thought the footballers would win the league. They did. So I just went straight into hurling. And you said a while ago, I just noted it here, you said you didn't know if it was a surprise, but I went for Doon versus Kilmallock in that county semi-final. I think on their day, Doon are capable of beating anyone, but I just think without Rich English, without Darragh Donovan, we talk about leaders a lot today. Two of the main leaders, Rich English is to Doon what William Donoghue is to Na Piarsaigh, in my opinion. And without him, and to beat Kilmallock, who have the likes of Graham O'Cahey, Paddy O'Loughlin, Aaron Costello, and 220 to 117, they never really looked like losing it, I thought. I just thought Doon's performance exceptional at that.
Yeah, I thought Doon's performance was exceptional that day. And, I wasn't awfully surprised about it, if I'm honest. I thought in the group stages, in their games with Adair and Patrick Swell, which I saw about them, I was impressed with Doon. Now they had Darragh Donovan for those two games, as far as I recall. They hadn't Rich English, obviously, but I was quite impressed with Doon. Like they have, they have a lot of young players coming through. And like you did have the like of Pat Ryan and you had the experience of guys like Dennis Maloney and guys like that and like they brought on a couple of young players, like you had a young player like Chris Thomas who came in and was very, very competent at cornerback. You had Mike O'Brien who was there. So like. In terms of surprise of the year, I opted for the Kilmallock win over Na Piarsaigh as my surprise of the year this year, because I had the sense right from the start of this year that Na Piarsaigh were coming all guns blazing for the Daily Cup. And hindsight is a perfect science. I proved right in the end. But I honestly thought that it was a bit of a surprise, 216 to 117, because Kilmallock had suffered a heavy defeat to the Piercing last year. So, like, it was a big turnaround, but as it transpired, it was just a wake-up call that the Piercing needed. But to me, that was the surprise of the year, more so than Doon against Kilmallock, because going to the county semi-final this year between Doon and Kilmallock, I was genuinely worried about Kilmallock, for the simple reason that the performance against the Han, as I said earlier on, I think it raised red flags for me in that it said more about possibly Kilmallock than a Han. The way a Han came back at him and like really closed it down, like, you know, Kilmallock were out of sight and wasn't able, and lost their grip in the game and wasn't able to regain it. And I had worries for that reason, because I honestly believe, no disrespect to a Han, and it's great that they retained their A status, but you know, I thought Doon were a step up on that, and a good step up on it, and that's exactly how it transpired. And I'm going for the surprise of the year in hurling. I'm going for Kilmallock's victory over the Piercing.
Yeah, no, look, I agree. I was surprised at that, but I just think that it wasn't a knockout game, and the Piercing knew they could regroup. Now, I know the pressure was on straight away after that loss. Every game becomes knockout after that. I'm going to still stick with Doon Kilmallock. I just think with those players missing, I think Doon, as I said, are an exceptional team, and to be able to go to a county final without those two players says a lot about Doon and the players that are coming through. But I'm going to still stick with it just to go against you, I suppose. But no, in a knockout game, I just think that with the chips on the line, they went and got the job done against, which then they definitely weren't favourites. I suppose just looking through the hurling championships as a whole, there wasn't that many surprises. Like, the Piercing would have been favoured to win it. They won it. Kildare Palace Kenry the year after getting to the final came back and won it. And Newcastle West in the intermediate the year after getting to the final came back and won it. So it kind of went as the way we thought it would go, which is strange enough really in a championship that's played out in 6 or 7 weeks, that there was no huge surprises, no standout surprise.
No. Basically, the hurling championship overall, over the 3 grades, as you said, and it's unfortunate that Junior A championship, not wanting to digress now, is not finished yet. But and hopefully, when the opportunity will present itself, it will. But overall, it was a championship that was devoid of any major surprise. It was a championship that basically Jack Winter called into script. You know, there were little marks for predicting winners and losers in these games, because they all sort of went according to plan. The
only thing is, there was some great games. That's not to say it wasn't a great championship, but at the end, the kind of cream came to the top, and the ones we expected to come to the top did.
It's a championship that's of a very high standard, Jack, and we're probably being a bit too critical of it when we go down that road, because like, here is the championship of the All-Ireland Senior Champions in 2 of the last 3 years, and who knows, were it not for fate, champions for the last 3 years, and it's certainly living up to the billing of the championship of the champion county. You know, in my view, it's a very, very good. It's a very well structured championship. No, all right, this year it had to be truncated, or last year now it had to be truncated because of the circumstances of the pandemic. But in normal circumstances, it is a very, very, very good structure and a very, very good format, and full marks again to Limerick GAA for pulling off what they did in the 11 weeks window, that the opportunity that they gave. I think they made serious inroads into their championships.
Yeah, no,
Those that they haven't finished, they certainly shouldn't be. There shouldn't be any culpability attributed to them for it, because I think that they've done a great job in it. Now there are outstanding. There are outstanding issues, like there are the Junior A Hurling Championship, the Junior B Championships, and the Under-21B football, or the Under-21 Championships. But they had plans in place for those. Were it not for the second, they're calling it a ripple now. That came. We had a surge for with the first pandemic. Then we had a ripple. Now we have a surge. That they're saying, but whatever terminology they use for it, but it halted proceedings anyway, whether it was a surge or a ripple or whatever it was. But like Limerick GA were on course to having their games finished within a matter of weeks.
Yeah,
like they would have certainly taken out the Junior A Championship had they got another 2 weekends.
Yeah, no, it is an awful disappointment, because look, you can't plan for a global pandemic, but when that came, Limerick J put in a brilliant structure in place, and look, as you said, we were 2 weeks off finishing.
Yeah, absolutely, and it wasn't without planning, because like they in fairness, during the close down of April and May, they had a series of contingency plans in place, depending on when they get the green light.
Yeah, and look, we hope that we will get that green light soon enough, and that we can play off those championships, that teams put in as much effort as the championships that went ahead and finished. So please God, we'll get them. But look, we'll disagree on the biggest surprise. I'm going to stick with doing Kilmallock in the semi-final. You're going to say Kilmallock's win over Na Piarsaigh in the opening game of the championship. And to football then, I suppose, look, personally, I thought Adair beating Newcastle in semi-final was a big surprise. Hindsight will tell me that I was idiotic to think such a way. But I saw Newcastle in 2019. I saw them in 2020 in both their group games. I thought they were superb. I thought there was no stopping Newcastle. That was a surprise for me. But the biggest surprise was Father Casey's and Adair. And hindsight will show that was a huge surprise. 17 points to 12. I suppose as a Ballysteen man, I was waiting for Adair. I thought they'd come through Casey's and that we'd be playing Adair in the quarter-final. That wasn't the case. Father Casey's were excellent on the day. I wasn't there now. I was at a different game. But by all accounts, Father Casey's exceptional against Adair, deserving 5-point winners, and a huge prize, I thought, in the Club Football Championship. Are you with me, Matt?
I'm with you, yeah.
What was your thinking on the biggest surprise of the Club Football Championship?
I actually, Father Casey's are involved in it, and I think it was the Ballysteen Father Casey's with the biggest surprise.
Well, I wasn't surprised anyway. Go on, tell us.
Because in fairness, having beaten Adair, the expectation was that Father Casey's would drive on, but it just didn't happen on the day. Ballysteen were the deserving winners, and that to me it was the major surprise of the year, and it just wasn't a victory. It was a comfortable victory enough. In fairness. Yeah, and you can't argue with that, Jack. I would be going for the surprise of the year in the football championship as Ballysteen's victory over Father Casey's. So
Ballysteen will take that. Look, I'm the eternal optimist. I go into every Ballysteen game thinking they're going to win, so it was no surprise to me, to be honest. But Father Casey's involved in both of them. I'm going Father Casey's at Adair for that second round game. You're going Father Casey's Ballysteen for that quarter final win for Ballysteen, and that'll take us on to the final category for today. Anyone listening will say finally. Team of the year. Look, we won't include intercounty teams because it'd be unfair to separate the hurlers and the footballers. They're operating at different levels, but the hurlers had a perfect year, but for Billy Lee and his footballers, Conor Sweeney's kick, if that doesn't go over, it's certainly looking like a perfect year. But besides that, McGrath Cup winners, first time in 15 years, league champions, back in Division 3, Munster semi-final for second year in a row. Great strides made by both county teams. We'll leave them out of it. So your club hurling team of the year, who did you pick?
Team now or club of the year?
I'll leave it open to your interpretation. I win for on-field performances as a team.
As a team, well, as a team, I it's very hard to look beyond the Piercy.
Yeah, I have them here.
Like I honestly thought that the performance in the county final. I say it again. The only downside to it was that they just couldn't go on to the Munster Championship. Limerick's performance in the All Ireland final, was one mirrored the other. The Piercy's performance, I thought in the county final was absolutely outstanding. I thought there were a couple of great performances as well by Kildimo Palace Kinnery.
Yeah.
And if you talk about club performances, retaining the Premier Minor Hurling Championship and winning promotion from B to A, you have to admire. You have to mention Benny Brown.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah,
by any benchmark, that is, it has been a good year for them because starting out at the start of the year, I'm sure that their two main goals starting out would be get up to Group A, number one, and number two, retain that championship. And they did both of them in style. So, if it was a club of the year as distinct from a team of the year, I'd be going for Benny Brown, but for a team of the year, you just can't look beyond the Piercy. It has to be the Piercy for me.
Yeah, on that club of the year, the same token goes for Doon retaining their under-21 championship and getting to the county final in the absence of two inter-county players is no mean feat. I think the Piercy were exceptional and that final performance will live long in the ages. But I'm going to go for Kildimo Palace Kinnery. I think last year in 2019, they lost to Blackrock after replay. I think if these teams meet in 2021, Kildimo Palace Kinnery will beat them. I think Kildimo Palace Kinnery were the better team in 2019, just couldn't get the job done for whatever reason in both finals. There was huge pressure on them again. They were heavy favourites to win Premier Intermediate. They lost their first game to Mungret and then they regrouped with 4 successful wins to take championship. I expected Na Piarsaigh to win the county. They did that. Kildimo Palace Kinnery thought there was more pressure on them, if that's possible. So I just went for Kildimo Palace Kinnery. But on the same line, Na Piarsaigh to win a county title so comprehensively without Shane Dowling, who will go down as one of Limerick's greats, is a brilliant achievement. So I wouldn't begrudge anyone picking Na Piarsaigh. I'll leave you out the final line there after my Kildimo Palace Kinnery spiel, but you'll still stick with Na Piarsaigh, I'm assuming.
I'll stick with Na Piarsaigh, and I suppose if there's a big disappointment, if you were handing out the disappointment in the year, it's the fact that Shane Dowling announced his retirement, his premature retirement, unfortunately. What a loss to the club game, what a loss to the county team, what a loss to the game of hurling, unbelievable. No, I'm sticking with Na Piarsaigh, but I have the utmost admiration for Kildimo Palace Kinnery, and your analysis of Kildimo Palace Kinnery is spot on. But I happen to believe that come 2021, that it will be to Kildimo Palace Kinnery's benefit that they missed out on promotion in 2019, because I believe because of the configuration of that team. I honestly think that, and I discussed it with one or two of the players involved, that the extra year won't have done them one bit of harm, and will have them in a better state of readiness to tackle senior hurling championship, which I have no doubt they shouldn't have any fears about. Yeah,
and look, what I learned about Kildimo Palace Kinnery just popped into my head. Limerick senior hurler Darren O'Connell Obviously part of that successful Palace Skinner team and the Limerick team. He's setting up his own business, Chilled Beans. It's a kind of coffee, hot chocolate, cookie kind of stand. Not a stand, it's inside in a truck. But he's opening up tomorrow, Saturday, in Garrett's Butchers, I think around midday, just to support local sport, one of our own that helped Limerick get the county final. But just, yeah, I'm going to go out in the Pearse Street. You made a compelling case from, is it 6 titles in 10 years, 4 Munster clubs, an All-Ireland club. The production line doesn't seem to be stopping, even without one of Limerick's greats. They get the job done and so comprehensively. So, Team of the Year would be the Pearse Street Senior Hurlers. But a special mention, the Club of the Year, Ballybrown and Doon, for continuing underage success and development at senior level. I suppose going on to Team of the Year in the football, can you look past Adair? I know, special mention again to Clahan for getting the job done, getting back up to the senior ranks, but Adair 3 and 4 years. And another club, you say about the Pearse again into Munster. I'd love to see this Adair team in Munster for a third time, because they'll have learned a lot of lessons from Nemo the first year, the Nair then 2 years ago, and it's an awful pity that they won't get that chance. We can talk about that in a minute, but just firstly, would you agree with Adair as club football team of the year?
I do, and more than a little honourable mention of Tahan, as you said. But I agree totally with you about the club championship. You know, they certainly haven't been out of their depth in the 2 previous appearances in the club championship, and I feel that they will have learned an awful lot from it. And it would actually be their 4th year in the club championship, because they had 1 year in the intermediate championship as well. And of all the 4 years, I thought they were better equipped in 2020 for going into the club championship than any other year. And I have no hesitation at all in saying that they're the football team of the year. But I'm again with that caveat that I'm fierce disappointed that they didn't get the opportunity on the bigger stage.
Yeah, and look, please God, we can get that. But it bodes well for Limerick that there is teams like Newcastle put it up to them. I know Galway put it up to them in the semi-final, that their team's getting close to that level, and a level that hopefully they can be repeated from Colour Broadford in 2008, that we do have a Limerick team competing in the Munster Club Championships. But that's all for our club awards. I'll run down to them as quickly as I can. Match of the Year, Intercounty. We win for Limerick's last Tipperary in the Munster semi-final, incredibly. Club Hurling Game of the Year, I went Mungret St. Paul's 117 to 116 win over Lion Palace Kinnery in the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship. You win for Ballybrown's minor Premier Hurling Championship final win over Mungret St. Paul's. For the club football, it was Adair's 113 to 11 point win over Newcastle. The Intercounty Player of the Year was Gerard Hegarty unanimously. The Club Hurler of the Year, I went for David Dempsey, you went for William O'Donoghue. Club Footballer of the Year, we both said Paul Maher of Adair. The Young Player of the Year for the Intercounty team was Adam English, the minor captain. Young Hurler of the Year for the clubs, we split it. Aidan O'Connor and Colin Coughlin, both Ballybrown. We split the club footballer. You went Killian Meade, I went Bill Casey. Killian Meade, Ballanders, Bill Casey, Ballysteen. No bias there. For Performance of the Year from a team, Limerick's All-Ireland final performance, the Pearse County final and Adair's County final. There was no real debate there. 3 exceptional performances. Individual Performance of the Year, we actually agreed on William O'Donoghue for his tour de force in the semi-final, Munster semi-final against Tipperary. Club Hurling Performance of the Year, you win David Dempsey's county final 2-2 salvo. I win for Pat Ryan 7 points in the semi-final against Kilmallock for Doon. Performance of the Year for an individual for the club football, Hugh Burke's 2-2 in the county final. Score of the Year, Declan Hannon's score for Limerick against Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final. David Dempsey's second goal in the county final, even though his first got an honourable mention, it was the Score of the Year in the club hurling. And Hugh Burke's first goal for Adair in the county final that kind of set the tone that day. Biggest surprise, I went for Doon beating Kilmallock in the county semi-final in the hurling. You went for Kilmallock beating the Pearse in the first round of the senior hurling. For the football, I went Casey's beating Adair. You went for Ballysteen beating Father Casey's as a result. And then for, I suppose, Team of the Year, hurling, the Pearse senior hurling team with Club of the Year going to Doon or Ballybrown. And then Team of the Year in the football, it was Adair for winning a 3rd county title in 4 years. Well, a 4th and 5th, if you want to include that intermediate. There's about an hour and a half, I think, there, Matt, of listening. Thanks very much for that. But I suppose before we finish up, we're finished with the awards. Thanks everyone for tuning in. But I suppose we'll finish on a sad note. We done timely passing of the legendary Cork ladies football manager Eamon Ryan during the week. A huge loss to the nation as a whole. Some incredible achievements as the ladies football manager of Cork, winning, was it 10 All-Irelands and 9 league medals. Is just an incredible feat. And we send our condolences to all the family of Eamon Ryan.
Yeah, I agree totally with you, Jack. I was so saddened yesterday when I heard that something that has been coming for a number of weeks now. Eamon Ryan has been ill, and Eamon Ryan is somebody I had the pleasure of being in his company on a couple of occasions, and I'll tell you, you wouldn't be very, very long. He was an extremely modest man, but you wouldn't be very long in his company when you would very clearly understand why people would want to play for him and play with him to their very best. His record has been absolutely, phenomenal. I don't think it will be ever. Nobody will ever achieve it again, because, Cork had won no All-Ireland Ladies Football Championship when Eamon Ryan took over back in 2004. And in 11 years, he guided them to 10 All-Irelands, 9 leagues, and 10 Munster Championships in what was an absolutely glory-filled decade. But he was the cornerstone of it all. He was the glue that brought it all together. He was a native of Watergrass Hill, Glenville area of to be East Cork, and he eventually settled down in Mid Cork, in the Ballivone and Shigila area, and a true football man. Right back from his days with UCC, where he first made his name, and he won Munster Championships, 2 Munster Senior Championships with Cork in 66 and 67, played in the All-Ireland final against Meath in 1967 when they lost by that Terry Cavan's goal. His contribution, not just to Cork, has been phenomenal, but to the game of ladies football, and in popularising the game of ladies football, and the standards in which he aspired to, and which he got his teams. His teams very accurately reflected what was his philosophy about how the game of football should be played, and he quit as manager, or he retired as Cork manager at the end of 2015, and then took up a role with the Cork senior footballers as a selector under Padder Healy's management for a couple of years. Eamon Ryan has left a legacy that will never be equal, I think. It has been absolutely phenomenal. The records are of his making. As I said, the couple of times that I shared his company, and as much of a pleasure it was a real privilege. Just to hear what his philosophy about how preparing teams and how the game should be played, and he exuded knowledge of football. He exuded man management skills, or in this case, woman management skills. And the record is there for all to see. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's a very, very sad day for a very, very sad for the game of ladies football. And I was just going through social media there last night, and it was phenomenal, the amount of tributes that were coming into him from all over Ireland, not just from Cork. He was so highly respected, and he was such an ad for Cork football and such an ad for the game of ladies football. Deepest sympathy to all his family, deepest sympathy to the Cork ladies football community, and the Cork men's football community, which he served and dedicated his life to, and he will be sorely lost. The name and Ryan, rest in peace.
Yeah, and I second those condolences again. Look, the legacy will speak for itself for generations to come, and just a huge thanks for giving the ladies football that platform that it deserves. And look, it's going from strength to strength, and hopefully it'll keep continuing in that way. But I suppose we've gone way over time. Looking by my clock here, I think it's well over an hour and a half. But look, it was an enjoyable hour and a half with you, Matt. Anyway, we went through an awful lot of awards, and if people want to skip through, they can skip through. But if you've made it this far, thanks very much, and thanks to you, Matt, again for helping me through this journey. We'll be back again next week for, I don't know what to talk about. We'll think of something.
Okay, thank you.